Extra Point with Ryan Justice is sponsored by The Phone Medic. For the best in cell phone, tablet, or laptop repairs, The Phone Medic is the only choice for you. The Phone Medic also offers gaming PCs and laptops for both gamers and everyday users. Visit one of the 3 Phone Medic locations in Amarillo, Canyon, and their new location in Lubbock today. Hello, football fans! Welcome to the Extra Point with Ryan Justice. The number 1 and number 2 overall draft picks looking to start a new beginning for their respective franchises. A familiar face in a new place down in New Orleans. And someone's looking to get nuked in Tennessee. Welcome to the Extra Point. It is week 3. I am your host, Ryan Justice. We have a big show on tap for tonight. We've got the AFC and NFC South preview. We are 24 hours away from the beginning of the NFL preseason. Week 1 kicks off tomorrow night with my Houston Texans taking on the New England Patriots on NFL Network. And then we've got a whole slate of games throughout the weekend. Ladies and gentlemen, football season is almost upon us. We've got some people that I got a bone to pick with today. And a uniform discussion on this show. Let's get started, everybody. First off, yesterday, if you haven't heard the rounds, Colin Cowherd had some controversial comments yesterday. I'm not going to get into the Dwayne Haskins stuff, but if you look at it, he was talking about quarterbacks that have been drafted since 2013 and was listing quarterbacks that he didn't think could win a Super Bowl. And I'm going to preface this by saying what I'm about to comment on is just accuracy from the national media. Accuracy from guys that need to get in touch with those who are on the beat locally, because the take that Colin Cowherd had was way out of touch. And I'm not saying this as a Texans fan. It was about our quarterback. But if you listen to the guys that are on the ground with the Texans, they are saying the complete opposite of what Colin Cowherd was saying about the team, the organization, how CJ Stroud was being portrayed. But here's what Colin Cowherd had to say, courtesy of the Herd yesterday on FS1.
That's where we're at. So this class has 3 first-round quarterbacks: Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, and CJ Stroud. And I can see all 3 of them having some success. And I can see all 3 failing. Bryce Young is really small. Anthony Richardson is insanely raw, and C.J. Stroud is just not talented enough to overcome the Houston Texans' nonsense. And what really is the most interesting one is probably C.J. Stroud. I mean, it's so random. It's one of the weirdest things in the history of the NFL draft. Ohio State football, top 5 program all time, maybe top 2 or 3, has never had a legitimate star franchise quarterback for any long-term distance in the NFL. That is so weird to me. I mean, of all the great programs in America, one, Ohio State, never had a star quarterback in the NFL. Joe Burrow was there but transferred. And I have no real idea why. They've had great coaches, offensive coaches. They get pass protection. They have star receivers. My only guess is that being a quarterback at Ohio State doesn't necessarily prepare you for the NFL. You have such staggering talent around you compared to the rest of your conference, not called Michigan, that it just doesn't prepare you to get hit, to throw into small windows, to have to run for cover. At Ohio State, it's 4- and 5-star linemen, 5-star receivers, great coaching staffs, and a conference mostly outside of Michigan you can walk over.
Let's pause there, because if I'm thinking about it, and a lot of people who have been on the opposite side of this argument, Colin Cowherd is saying that about pretty much every first round, that it's been said about every first round quarterback to come out, with the exception of maybe Andrew Luck and Joe Burrow. There has always been a healthy amount of skepticism about if a quarterback can transfer to the NFL. And it's not just Ohio State. To me, that's just a lazy take. That's just, okay, I'm reading the bullet points of what I can talk about on my show today. And okay, Ohio State quarterback, let's go after that. I understand Colin Cowherd's job is to be polarizing. I'm probably going to be the same way on this show myself occasionally. But what he says next about the Texans and then what he follows it up with about the Colts and Anthony Richardson, it really makes me scratch my head. You know.
That's my guess. But if you told me today on August 8th, Tuesday, August 8th, I had to pick one that would miss, I would probably pick CJ Stroud from all the things I've heard in camp. I think Anthony Richardson is so talented that with Shane Steichen, a brilliant offensive coach, I just think he's going to be productive. I don't know if he's going to win a lot, but he's going to be so absurdly productive. It's like 6'4.5", 255. He's going to be like tackling a defensive end. Cam Newton, Big Ben, first couple of years, they just ran over people. Josh Allen was completing 55% of his throws for a year and a half. He just ran over people. I can see Anthony Richardson with Shane Steichen, a brilliant coach, a star running back, and a good offensive line. I can just see him being productive. Maybe winning 5 games, but you look up and you're like, yep, nobody plays like that. He could be special. Bryce Young.
So, again, pause there. I mean, because he would later go on to say the things working against CJ Stroud is rookie head coach, a defensive rookie head coach, a first-year offensive coordinator, and a wacky owner. So that clearly tells me you haven't been paying attention to this team this offseason. Because if you would have, you would know that the Texans are past all that. We'll get more into that in the preview. We got a great guest host tonight. I promise you guys are going to love this. But you haven't been paying attention. And this is paired with the fact that it seemed like before the draft, everybody did whatever they could do to, I guess, disregard what CJ Stroud was. Now, don't get me wrong. I am somebody that until I see otherwise has a healthy skepticism of what a college quarterback is going to be. I'm still skeptical about guys like Lamar Jackson, skeptical about Justin Fields. I was skeptical about Tua, and they've been up and down in a lot of instances on how long their game can last in the NFL. But when I looked at these two quarterbacks coming out of college, it was Bryce Young, it was CJ Stroud, and everyone else. And a lot of people were saying Stroud and Young were probably going into the best situations. DeMeco Ryans led the number 1 defense in the league last year. Bobby Slowick is coming from the Shanahan system, which a third of the league is running now. And it's a proven quarterback-friendly system that a lot of quarterbacks can develop going into that system. It's made CJ Beathard and Nick Mullins look good. So a guy as talented and as accurate as CJ Stroud should thrive in this system. The only knock I've really seen about this offense is the Texans might have weak receivers. But if Colin Cowherd was paying attention to what was being said coming out of the Texans camp, he would know that Stroud and Tank Dell are looking amazing. John Mechie has come back really strong. Nico Collins is emerging as a deep threat for this team. You would know that the Texans have a chance at being a scrappy team this year that might win some games that they aren't supposed to win. As far as getting to the Super Bowl, winning a Super Bowl, that's further down the line. The biggest thing for the Texans is you got to go out on that field and look competent, which they haven't in the last 4 years. They definitely haven't in the front office. So to me, that's an absolutely lazy take. And I honestly can't wait until the Texans kind of shut up Colin Cowherd. And but I'll get off my rant. So because we have week 3 of our big ass NFL preview, and I'm proud to bring in my my co-host. He is one of the hosts of the Cinema Slayers podcast. Go check them out. He is the Doombringer himself, an avid Tennessee Titans fan, the one and only co-commissioner of my fantasy league, the League of Extraordinary Rawness 2.0. The one and only Sterling Condre. Sterling, how is it from coming all the way from Chi-Town?
Yeah, I've got sound effects.
I can see that. I'm impressed.
Well, it's good to be here.
There you go. Thank you for coming on.
Let's set
man.
the record straight a little bit.
Okay.
On the AFC South.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see. Because I'm interested in this because the Texans are the first up. And we'll get right into our AFC South preview. I'm interested to see what you have to say. If you've been a Texans fan like me for the last 3 years, the words borderline alcoholic have been mentioned in your vocabulary often. The Texans were 3-13-1 in the AFC South. I need to quit doing this late at night. They had the 2nd overall pick in the draft. Sterling, you and I have gone back and forth on the Texans for as long as we've known each other. And with the struggles that they've had these last several years, you know, this offseason is a major turn the page offseason for them. Honestly, what are you kind of seeing from the Texans this offseason?
I think your offense is your biggest liability. I mean, the defense should be solid. I mean, there's lots of things that always should be going into the NFL that do or do not transpire. But the offense would worry me if I were you. You've got a young quarterback. You've got wide receivers that may or may not pan out. And you've got a running game that's unproven. I think, while Pierce is great, I've got Pierce in a dynasty league. He's great. Will he stay healthy? Because Singletary is not the answer. Singletary is a great backup. He's not an RB1.
No, and I don't think they brought him in to be an RB1. A lot of people have really looked at Singletary as being the definite number 2 punch for Dameon Pierce, because I don't think the Texans want to do what, say, the Cowboys have done, what people fear the Titans are doing with Derrick Henry, in the sense that they're just going to run him into the ground for his first 4 years. What a lot of running backs are concerned about throughout the league. I will say this. I agree with you that I feel like the offense is going to be the weakest part. But there are things that I can look at on that offense that I'm optimistic in a way that I haven't been optimistic about this offense in a while. I really liked the addition of Dalton Schultz. Noah Brown, I feel like, was a solid pickup. CJ Stroud, I felt like if they couldn't get Bryce Young, it had to be CJ Stroud. It couldn't be anyone else. I didn't want to see Anthony Richardson. I didn't want to see Will Levis. I didn't want to see Hendon Hooker or any of those guys that had as many question marks around them as they did quarterback this team. I mean, you're looking at them. They had the 30th ranked defense, the 31st ranked offense, and a lot of that was just because of the dysfunction. Now, the defense, I feel like, should be better. Speaking on that defense, you know, Will Anderson, I feel like he's a solid candidate for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Do you think?
I mean, possibly. Defensive Rookie for the year of the year is always, to me, one of the hardest things to pick for rookies, because you can have some 6th round linebacker that shows up and balls out. You know, does that typically happen? No, but defense, considering that is much more of a cohesive unit of, like, where the offense, where, you know, you have your wide receivers running routes, it's a little bit different. Like on the defense, you have to like corral to the ball. You have to communicate a lot better in those instances. And somebody could just end up with some veterans that kind of opens their eyes and allow, like, people end up running towards them and they just amass tackles, you know. I mean, could he be a candidate? Sure. You know, but he's in a field of right now, I'd argue, like of potentially 20 candidates.
Yeah.
Going into the year.
I felt like he was probably, you know, the Texans probably got 2 of the top 5, definitely top 5, maybe even 2 of the top 3 candidates for and out of the draft. And they've got young guys coming back that are expected to perform really well. Guys like John Mechie, Derek Stingley is going to be healthy again. You see who they've added. Some of the big pickups on the defense I felt like were Jimmy Ward, Sheldon Rankins. Hassan Ridgeway is on there as well. I figured a lot of guys with 49ers ties were going to be there. Denzel Perryman's another good one as well. But the strength for me, it has to be the defense. I mean, D'Amico Ryans had the number 1 defense in the league last year, and I feel like what his knowledge and what him and Nick Caserio have picked up is going to be the definite strength of this team this season. What they've lost, though, I feel like is more important than it. That's what really took the cake for me. And I put it was a lot of joy putting Jack Easterby on this lost category, because if you have read any stories on the Texans these last few years, SI's done a couple of articles. I would recommend listening to guys, for those out there who want to know a little more, listen to guys at the Sports Radio 610 in Houston, especially Landry Locker and John Lopez, because what they have detailed that Jack Easterby did to this organization, a borderline criminal. You talk about
love Easterby.
Oh, of course you do, because you love villains. You were the biggest.
Oh, he was great for Tennessee.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he was. I'm sure, because he took DeAndre Hopkins out of the division, and then he ended up winding up with Tennessee. But
he's back in division. It's fine.
Yeah, but he's not wearing the right colors. I'll tell you that. Lovie Smith,
he will be.
No, we'll get to that in a minute.
Wait till you see that blue.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. That blue doesn't belong in Nashville. But they, Lovie Smith goes away. They tried with David Culley, and of course they brought in Lovie Smith. This whole situation reminds me of the 49ers before they got Kyle Shanahan, where the organization was just in complete disarray. They bring in a highly unqualified coach to be head coach in Jim Tomsula. And then they bring in a guy that's kind of got some name value, kind of has had some success in the league, and Chip Kelly. Those both don't work out, and then they ultimately settle on Kyle Shanahan. I feel like that's where they're at. D'Amico's probably not going to set the world on fire this year, but he's definitely not going to be a one-and-done coach. And then, of course, we talked about who they drafted. These are the impact players I feel like that some people should watch out for. Of course, CJ Stroud and Will Anderson, they needed an upgrade at center. Juice Scruggs probably needs a little development, but he was definitely better than what they had. But the guy that is standing out in camp right now is Tank Dell. He's a Houston kid. The reports on him is that, he's 5'8", 160, but he can get open. He's a great route runner. Maybe not take the top off speed, but he's a guy that can go up and get those passes and be thrown open. And for a quarterback like CJ Stroud, that's big.
Yeah, but what would worry me the most with the Texans evaluating that, and I think it's a big deal regardless of anything, is do you really trust your corners and your safeties to be the litmus of what this kid's skill is?
No, I don't. And I think that's why everyone's a lot of Houston fans are excited for this first preseason game, because I get it. I get it's preseason, and some people can write it off, but the games are going to be one thing. I think what's really going to tell the tale is when they get into joint practices. And it kind of sucks, because I kind of am disappointed that Jalen Ramsey is out until December, because the Texans have joint practices with the Dolphins, and I would have loved to see how these guys fared against Jalen Ramsey. to see where they really were, because you're not going to see the starters and everyone in the game. It's the joint practices is where the real work is.
See, when it comes to preseason, I'm one of the people, I don't completely write it off. I don't like it as an evaluation of talent for fans. I get for coaches, it's a completely different thing. They get a lot more perspectives on stuff than we do. But I don't like it as an evaluation of talent for us. But I do like it's the warm-ups. It's getting you ready, because weird statistical thing about last year, like all the star quarterbacks that did not play in preseason all did very poorly.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the season. But all the ones that, went ahead and got a few reps in here and there, they just kept going from the year before. If you're Tom Brady, who's been in the league for, 90 billion years, sure, you can sit out. You don't need to get reacclimated. You're acclimated. You know what's going on. You've got your rhythm just 24/7. Like, I mean, I know it's jumping ahead a little bit, but like Ryan Tannehill last year, sat out in preseason, looked rusty for the first few games. And I think that's where preseason's important. You get to get in-game reps. You get to get, reacclimated to game speed, all these things without pressure. You don't have to worry about winning the game. You don't even really have to worry about scoring. Yeah, is it always nice if your first team goes out there and scores? Sure. But you're running against base defenses. Defense isn't doing any schemes, nothing like that. So you're not really getting a litmus with those things. But you may be right, though. I mean, with Tank going out there and just getting his first experience of the NFL speed, because it's one thing when everybody's in practice speed and drills and all this other stuff. When you've got another team's linebacker keying up to hit you, and I'm not saying they want to hurt you or injure you. They do want to hurt you, though. They want you to feel it.
Yeah.
You want to feel the hit. Like I said, they don't want to injure you, but yeah, they want to make sure that you go, damn, I don't want to do that again.
Well, yeah, and on top of that, they're excited because this is the first live action they've had for the rookies since January, December. For the veterans,
same with the Texans. They haven't done anything since then either.
Well, we do have some veterans that were on playoff teams last year. We're looking at the first 5 games for the Texans: at Baltimore, Indy, at Jacksonville, Pittsburgh, and Atlanta. One thing I do kind of feel like with this team, I think they could sneak one. And the one, if they were going to sneak one and kind of steal a victory, I feel like Baltimore might be the one. No. Here's why. Well, hold on. Baltimore's got a brand new offensive coordinator. And there's a bunch of new pieces that may or may not play this preseason. I don't know if Lamar is going to play this preseason. I'm pretty sure OBJ is going to take it easy. So you're going to have guys kind of getting into the chemistry of that speed. So I feel like if the Texans could steal one, it would be against Baltimore.
Lamar doesn't need to. I know I just went on that whole spiel about how playing in preseason is important. Lamar doesn't need to, because he's got afterburners. You don't need to warm those up. Like, the man can blaze everybody on the field.
He's also injury prone. So, but I definitely
no
think
one on the Texans is going to hit him hard enough.
Oh, wait! I want to see Malik Collins or Christian Harris do that. But my prediction for them, and I feel like this is a pretty modest one, pretty accurate one though. I think I got them 6-11, third in the AFC South. Their over under when it opened before they drafted was 5.5 games. It moved up to 6.5 with CJ Stroud coming along. So I feel like 6-11 is right there in the wheelhouse. They could, like I said, they could steal one and go 7-10. But I think this is going to be a team kind of like the Jets, where you're like, okay, yeah, they're 6-11, 7-10 in that range, but they're a scrappy 6-11, 7-10.
I'm looking over the whole schedule right now real quick. I mean, yeah, there's some surefire losses on here. You know what game I think you guys are going to take? It's the Browns.
I hope we do.
I think they're the most overrated team in the NFL right now. I do not see them doing that well.
No, and here's an interesting thing too. We own their draft pick.
Yeah.
So the worst that they do, I'm honestly hoping the Browns do bad enough for us to land Marvin Harrison Jr. But I agree.
That wouldn't be bad, but I think it just everybody's keying up because they're it's like it's the Deshaun Watson factor. It's like they have a great offensive line factor. Where was that at the end of last year? I saw nothing at the end of last year that really made me go, they may be on to something.
Mm-hmm.
I think Deshaun Watson, regardless of whether or not you believe any allegations or anything like that, his head's not in it anymore.
Nope.
And yeah, he can have all the time in the world, but that still didn't mean anything last year. You know, I don't know what any of these people like. I'm not seeing anything out of Cleveland that is making me think they're going to do anything. I think honestly, another game you guys might take, it might be the Jets. I think they're overrated too. Everybody's like, but Aaron Rodgers, all this other stuff. What did the Packers do last season with Aaron Rodgers and then half the team? Because
you're not a Jet. You're not on the Jets train this year, I take it.
Half of the Jets played on the Packers last year anyway. They didn't do anything. And then when the season's on the line, they got beat by Detroit. Well, I don't get why that all of a sudden translates to success all of a sudden because it's in New York.
Yeah. No, I get that. We had the Jets. We covered the Jets on their first week, and I actually had them second in the AFC East in a wild card. I got some comments rolling in here. Well, how's it going, everybody? Hunter Dillon, good to see you, man. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, because I had the Jets kind of chalked up as a loss for the Texans, just on the fact that their defense is going to be really good, and I think that the Texans at the wide receiver position is probably on paper is their weakest position. We'll see once they get to the Jets. But I don't see them overcoming those kind of teams. But the teams that were kind of on the brink last year, a team that may have been 9-8, 10-7 last year, I could see the teams getting them. We'll move on.
Well, I just went through their schedule real quick in my head. I actually kind of agree with you. I think 6-11 is reasonable.
Yeah, and I think 6-11 with a lot of progress. And next year is going to be the year that we're looking at them as somebody that can make it into the wild card, I think. So we'll move on and we'll go to the Indianapolis Colts. And they were 4-12-1, third in the AFC South. They had the 15th overall defense and 27th overall offense. And anytime, I don't know if you have a circus sounder on your setup, but anytime I think of the Colts just in the last 12 to 18 months, it's a circus show. And
I've got this.
There you go. There you go. And the Colts to me have just been a sideshow. They have just been an absolute. Now that Dan Snyder's out of the league, I feel like Jim Irsay is the worst owner in the league. And I mean, just the impulsive, rash, illogical decisions that they've made for a team that's got a great GM in Chris Ballard, for a team that had a top 2 running back in Jonathan Taylor. The owner is what is holding it here. Hang on. We got some storm rolling in, I think. The internet is, or the owner is what's holding this team back. I mean, you had Jeff Saturday as the interim head coach last year. Like, how crazy was that?
Yeah, that was really ridiculous. I mean, I don't know what the point of that was. I don't know why you get rid of your coach just to do that for the rest of your games. Unless you're tanking without wanting to openly say you're tanking, you just go, hey, Jeff, go out there and lose us some games real quick. I mean, this owner too, especially, you've got this whole Jonathan Taylor situation that he's flipping out about. Yet a few years ago, he let Andrew Luck keep $26.5 million that he could have legally gotten back. And then also just spent $20 million to help a whale
Yeah.
move
I mean,
from Florida to
Seattle or something like that,
Yeah.
all across country.
Yeah. And, he's willing to do all of that stuff, but he won't, doesn't want to pay Jonathan Taylor, doesn't want to do anything like that. I mean, unless he's thinking that, I know that they're trying to do that whole thing where the Colts are looking real shady right now with the whole, he's got a back injury. We want to put him on the non-football injury list. So next year he'll stay a restricted free agent and won't go unrestricted. I think that that's going to be real tough because I think where the Colts were smart, they said it was a back injury. And so if Jonathan Taylor says, no, I don't have a back injury, how do you really test it to prove he doesn't? Because what if he said that and then they caught him in what he was trying to do, which is sit out of camp, but they can't financially charge him and fine him if he's injured.
Yeah.
But so they called him on that by going, okay, well, we'll put you on non-football injury then. So now he's like, I don't have a back injury. Well, you can't test it either way.
No. And now he's out with an ankle. And then on top of that, you've got the entire betting situation that happened with the Colts where they either had to cut or suspend a healthy portion. It was like 3 or 4 guys on that roster that were either starters or starter quality, I believe. And it's just you have this circle of this cloud of dysfunction hanging over the Colts, and they got an okay start to the year. They played the division 3 of the first 5 games. It's Jacksonville, then Houston, then Baltimore, the Rams, and Tennessee. I mean, Jacksonville and Baltimore are 2 surefire losses for me. They've got a decent defense, but I'm not an Anthony Richardson guy. I'm not. You have less than 55% accuracy in your last year in college. I don't think he should have come out. And they're putting it all on his shoulders now, especially with Jonathan Taylor possibly not going to be there.
Yeah, that's rough. I mean, I'm looking at their schedule right now. Jacksonville's a loss. I would say they beat the Texans, but it's home. Yeah. So I actually think the Texans are going to take that loss to the Ravens. I think it's a loss to the Rams. It's a loss to Tennessee. I don't see them winning any games in their first 5 games.
No, I don't either. And
I think their first win could be against the overrated Browns in 7. Or is that week 7 or 8? Yeah, like it's crazy. Like even outside of that, I think it's a push with the Panthers, except it's in Carolina, so I give it to the Panthers. And maybe the Saints, because I think it's a push with the Saints, but it's in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
I honestly think they are probably going to be 4-13 at the end of the season.
Wait till you get to the end. Wait till you see what I've got them at. So looking at who they added, Shane Steichen, I feel like was a solid hire at head coach. I liked his work with Jalen Hurts in Philly, and I feel like he could at least coach a competent offense. But again, it's just the owner having too much of his hands on what is going on day to day in the football operations and being so impulsive, being so irrational that it affects what goes on the field. He directly affects what is happening on the field. And aside from maybe Gardner Minshew, who I think possibly could upset Anthony Richardson for that starter job, he may give them the best chance to win. I don't see anyone that they've added that really moves the needle for me.
I hope Isaiah McKenzie does, though.
Yeah.
I've got him in a dynasty league. That's the only reason why I care. Outside of that, I don't really care.
Yeah. And I mean, they didn't really maybe Yannick Ngakoue and Stephon Gilmore, they didn't really lose. They kind of broke even on adding and losing guys, too. Matt Ryan was a ghost last year. They inherited the ghost of Matt Ryan from Atlanta. Paris Campbell didn't really do anything. Yannick Ngakoue, he's still productive. I don't know. He may be a rotation guy now. Gilmore, I don't think he fit in that system. And then you look at who they drafted. Of course, Anthony Richardson, the big one in the top 5. Josh Downs might be something for them. And I want to see what Julius Brents has to offer. But again, it's just the Colts. The only thing that moved the needle for the Colts is what the owner's been doing.
Yeah, he's kind of like a diet Jerry Jones.
Yeah. Or maybe a Jerry Jones on drugs.
Well, I mean, the thing is I don't think he's as bad as Jerry Jones. Yeah. I don't think he's as bad as Jerry. I don't.
Yeah.
But it could be that the older he gets and he's getting to that point where he's realizing that, like, more or less his legacy is now on the line, and he hasn't done anything since they more or less lucked into Peyton. If who's that other guy?
Andrew Luck?
No. The guy that got drafted before Peyton Manning. Or after. Guy that washed out, big bust. San Diego Chargers.
Oh, Ryan Leaf.
Yes. If Ryan Leaf hadn't have gone in and intentionally blown his interview with the Indianapolis Colts like he admitted to doing, I don't think we would be telling this story right now. We wouldn't be, like, Indy would have had nothing ever.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think they would have gotten anything that, like, what Peyton ended up getting them. I don't think that would have ever, like, nothing would have even come close to that. I don't think then they would have gotten Andrew Luck. And I think Andrew Luck at this point also might be playing football still.
Yeah.
If he hadn't played with the Colts.
What has always benefited the Colts, though, too, and they've always found a way to fall forward. I mean, they get rid of
until recently.
Yeah. They've always found a way. Okay, Peyton Manning leaves. They have a year of being terrible. Oh, look, we fall into Andrew Luck and we're in the AFC Championship again. They fall into guys like Jonathan Taylor. They fall into guys, great defensive players, or somebody like I had his name earlier today. The other receiver on their team that wasn't Paris Campbell. But they fall into these guys that keep them afloat, and I think finally the ship is starting to sink for them. You mentioned 4-13. Well, that's exactly what I got them at. 4-13, last in the AFC South. I want to say top 5, possibly top 3 pick, which puts them in the Marvin Harrison Jr., which that's a bit of irony. It puts them in the Caleb May, Drake Williams Drake May, Caleb Williams conversation. And again, it could potentially set them up to fall forward. Now, do you think if those quarterbacks are there, barring they don't take Marvin Harrison, do you feel like the Anthony Richardson experience only gets 1 year?
No, they'll give him 2.
They'll give him 2. Even if they draft a quarterback at 1 or 2?
If they're picking 1 or 2, I think Irsay is going to trade it to someone else, and they're going to get a bunch of picks that they're going to make a bunch of mediocre picks with, and then they won't do anything. I mean, I think while the Richardson deal, with it being a rookie deal and all this other stuff, is very team friendly, they made it very easy to move on and all this other stuff. I don't think, you can't. I think it's a little too embarrassing to automatically go back-to-back quarterbacks, because nobody wants to end up being like the Arizona Cardinals were a few years ago. Nobody wants to be the Cleveland Browns when they drafted a quarterback, but like 2 or 3 years in a row at pick 23. Like, you don't want to be that team, because that's always shown to be like you become a laughing stock. They'd much rather just be bad and say they're rebuilding than a joke.
Yeah.
But then also Irsay could do a bunch of meth, and they could be the second pick and want to trade up into the first.
Yeah, or draft a kicker or something like that. I mean, but I think that's where they're going. I honestly do. And I know they tried to trade up to grab Stroud or Young, and they were very active in doing so. I think they almost had a trade with Arizona to go up to 3. and the Texans kind of swiped that from under them. But I think if they get one of the top 3 picks and they don't have Caleb Williams or Drake May, they're going to go Marvin Harrison. I mean, it's going to go back to where his dad was famous, and it's going to go back to where his legacy really stood out. I think Irsay is the type of guy that's going to be all over it. I mean, his reasoning for putting Jeff Saturday in a head coaching job was laughable at best. He did it because he was a legacy guy that could possibly get people interested or get Colts fans interested. I think we're entering a period where the Colts are going to be bad for a while. And they've needed to rebuild for a while, but Irsay's been too stubborn. So it could, at 4-13, to me, might be the positive end of where they're going to end up this season.
I mean, I did that with kind of giving them some pushes here and there. My rule of thumb when I'm picking games, if I think it's close, I pick the home team.
Yeah.
And that's just a default rule of thumb. And I think that's where I gave them some wins. I think that's why I picked them maybe to win over the Colts. That's why I picked them to, or maybe beat the Texans on the last game of the season. It's roughly close. It's close enough. Just go with the home team,
So now we move on. Oh, go ahead.
I mean, that's just it. I mean, but where you were saying the Texans could sneak one in and maybe beat a team they shouldn't. I feel the opposite with the Colts. I don't think they can beat anyone outside of other lower mediocre to bad teams. I think those are the only shots they have.
Or like a team going into the postseason. I don't think the Texans are going to be there, but maybe a team going into the postseason that's already clinched everything.
Unless the Steelers have it wrapped up 4 weeks before the end of the season. I mean, I don't think any of the last teams. I don't think the Raiders are going to be making a playoff push. I don't think the Falcons are going to be making a play. Well, actually, the Falcons could, because I think the NFC, they are all just mid-level teams at best.
Except for 2.
In the NFC South?
No, I mean, in the South, yeah. But
yeah,
in the NFC as a whole, it's Eagles, Niners, and everyone else.
I'm talking about just NFC South. They are all just mediocre teams.
Yeah.
I couldn't say who could possibly win that division or not. It's, so maybe the Falcons are playoff winners or playoff teams at that point. Maybe everyone else in the NFC South is so bad that they've got it wrapped up 3 weeks before the end of the season, but outside of that, I don't think that's even a case, So
they could very well be playing who's going to lose this game and get one of those higher picks between maybe like them and the Bucks and a handful of other teams. I think are just not going to be there in the end.
See, I don't know. I'm slightly higher on the Bucks than you, I guess.
They lost a lot. Wait till you see what they lost.
Yeah, but I kind of like Baker for whatever stupid reason.
I do too. And I believed in him in Cleveland. I felt like he got a raw deal in Cleveland. And we'll get to it. We'll get to it more once we get to the NFC South. But it's not Baker per se. It's more or less coaching and what's around him. But now we get to the part of the show that I'm really interested in. Your Tennessee Titans, 7-10, second in the AFC South. The team that thinks they need to wear the Houston Oilers jerseys this season for some reason.
Oh, you mean the team that owns them?
Well, the team that should have left them in Houston.
No,
I didn't see.
Why?
I didn't see you don't see the Ravens trotting out Browns uniforms.
Because who wants to wear Browns uniforms? No one has any good memories of the Browns after Jim Brown left. So why would they want to do that? And plus, I think it's just to make people salty.
Definitely, it's completely out of spite because Amy Adams is carrying on her father's legacy of hatred for the city of Houston.
Yeah,
but
They
And I
turned their back
know
on
that's
it.
why you're eating it up.
Well, that powder blue, that Carolina blue, that love ya blue is an iconic color.
It is.
And they look clean.
They do.
Look super clean.
And they belong in Houston.
But why? Just because, I mean, they were also the Tennessee Oilers.
For 2 years.
Doesn't matter. They were the Tennessee Oilers.
The only time I felt like it was appropriate for Tennessee to wear those colors was when they did the AFL celebration a few years ago, or 15 years ago now. And all the teams that originated in the AFL got to wear their original uniforms. But now it's stirring the pot. It's stirring the pot for between Houston and Tennessee. And don't get me wrong, I love the rivalry. Houston's needed like a bona fide rival forever.
The funny thing is we don't really consider you a rival.
Thing is, I think after these games, they probably will.
Well, no, that's the thing. You will. In this division, the only rival we really have anymore is the Jags.
That's probably true for both of us. See, I don't know. The Texans don't consider the Jags a rival because they beat them 9 out of 10 times.
And that's because you don't have the legacy we do with the Jags. Like going back to like when Mark Brunell was with the Jags and all that stuff, when it was Steve McNair, all that stuff. From what that was the AFC Central back in the day.
Steve McNair was drafted in Houston.
Yes.
So was Eddie George.
Yeah, and they were Tennessee Titan legends.
Okay.
Were they not? Did they not make it to the Super Bowl with Tennessee?
As Tennessee Titans, not as Houston Oilers.
We own the rights. I mean, that's the thing is Houston Texans fans legitimately think that the Tennessee Titans should just go, hey, we have this thing, this brand that belongs to us that is worth a bunch of money. And we should just give it to the city that didn't give any, I almost said bad words there, didn't give anything for them when they were there at the end.
Well, that's because the owner PO'd the town so bad. He PO'd the city so bad that they wouldn't support him. And don't get me wrong, Houston did the same thing to the Texans when Jack Easterby was running around doing everything he did. I mean, last year the Texans had what? I think before 2021, they had an 19 year consecutive streak of selling out NRG Stadium. Jack Easterby comes in, the whole Deshaun Watson thing happens, all of the dysfunction stuff, and they disappear. And Houston's very much like the Oakland A's fans, where if they're going to voice their displeasure by not showing up.
Houston fans are just like the city of Miami fans. They only really care when the team's doing good.
That's not true.
People will go to games. They'll hold out. They'll go to games. But they don't really care. They don't really do anything. But whenever a Houston team's doing great, they're the loudest people ever, talking about how all their teams are amazing, all of these things. But they never have that energy when they need to have it. Whenever it really matters. It does not matter if Bud Adams made the city of Houston mad. If you wanted that team, you go.
I don't think it was that. I'll agree with you on one point. If they wanted that team, because the whole thing was over a new stadium, because the Astrodome is still falling apart, and the only thing that's stopping it is because it's a historical landmark. But if they would have torn down the Astrodome and built them a new stadium, we'd still be talking about the Houston Oilers. Or
if they just built another stadium somewhere else.
Yeah, like Minute Maid.
Yeah, just give them another stadium.
And honestly, probably in the next 10 or so years, we're going to be getting to the point where NRG is going to need to come down.
Yeah, and then the Houston Texans will probably become the Berlin Texans.
Oh, God. No, I feel like here's the thing is this thing with the Astrodome is going to go on for so long that I feel like when it's finally time for them to give the Texans a new stadium, the Astrodome's going to come down. It's going to be like one of those dual implosion type deals where they're going to implode NRG Stadium and the Astrodome at the same time. And you're just going to see like a stampede of rats and cats and all sorts of stuff come crawling out of the Astrodome. But on to what the Tennessee Titans are. They were, like I said, they were 7-10, second in the AFC South. They had the 30th overall offense and the 23rd overall defense. Like you said at the beginning of the show, Ryan Tannehill not playing in the preseason really hurt them.
Well, I think what truly hurt them was Ryan Tannehill getting hurt.
Yes.
And also Taylor Lewan getting hurt. Like, those killed them.
Mm.
We also did really miss Harold Landry.
Yeah. He was big.
And people don't really realize what he did for our defense, because him and Jeffrey Simmons pull defenders to them. They're the ones that get the double teams and all those other things. Then you have everyone else getting sacks from it, and also doing that benefits, you're rushing the other quarterback. So, your cornerbacks, your safeties, everyone else then benefits from it, from that snowball effect down. Harold Landry going out, we had no one on the other side of the defensive line to really distract you, or, to help Jeffrey Simmons also put the pressure, and we got ate up. And I mean, it was our secondary that got ate up. But it is slightly deceiving, because when they do the overall defense and all that other stuff, one of the biggest factors is yards.
Yeah.
A classic style of what we do defensively is we try to always do a bend, don't break. We'll give you 99 yards, but it will be held to get that last one.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we've done for a long time, even especially the beginning part of Vrabel's success and all these other things. That's what it is. You'll get 1 billion yards passing on us. It will not matter. You won't get the touchdown.
So one thing I want to ask, because there's a with Vrabel, obviously there's the Texans connection between the cities and the Houston, Tennessee connection between the cities and stuff. But you got more than that. You got Mike Vrabel, who was defensive coordinator for the Texans before he came over there. And then now you pick up Tim Kelly, who's offensive coordinator. And my experience with Tim Kelly was that he was basically the proxy for Bill O'Brien. And the fact that Bill O'Brien, I think, didn't want the optics of continuously yanking play calling abilities from his offensive coordinators like he did with George Godsey. But they always ran this complicated game plan. Everyone's got to be able to do everything offense that was very inconsistent, hit or miss. My concern with this is because, and I've had this concern with Tennessee for a very long time, is that a lot of their offense, I would say probably about 80% of their offense runs through Derrick Henry.
Yes.
And that gets predictable, and B,
it's still hard to stop him.
It is hard to stop him.
We started losing games at the end of that season. He still had the most yards from scrimmage of any offensive player, and also was still the number 2 in just pure rushing.
I get that, but you've got to be nervous. As a Tennessee fan, you've got to be nervous that the wheels are going to come off at some point.
Weirdly enough, with Derrick, I'm not. Derrick is the one thing I am not nervous about. I'm worried that DeAndre Hopkins won't hold up. I'm worried that Ryan Tannehill won't hold up. I'm worried that even though we've retooled the offensive line, I mean, we also remember we statistically had the worst offensive line last year, and Derrick Henry still did all that with the worst offensive line of last year. So, yeah, he's the only thing I'm not worried about with our offense, because this is like the 3rd year in a row that everybody's like, well, this is the year he's going to slow down.
Well, generally the rule in the NFL, and you can go look up the stats on. I think there's a Bleacher Report article that I saw on it. Running back productivity in the NFL is usually in its prime for about 4 years before they just fall off. And Henry's past that. Now, don't get me wrong. He's in the category of Adrian Peterson and Frank Gore and stuff, where as far as longevity and durability, but that production's got to take a dip at some point.
It should. I still don't feel like it's this year because a lot of people don't realize also his first 2 years, he did not do much at all.
Yeah.
That's why to me, it's kind of a wash when everybody's like, oh, now granted, they ran him to death in Alabama. They also ran him to death in high school. But also, for whatever reason, this man is also not really a human being. He is also half tractor. He is part man, part tractor.
Okay, I may agree with you on that. It is hard to tackle it.
I mean, well, it's not even that. It's that man has like he probably has negative 5% body fat.
Yeah, I think so.
Like, I think people around him get skinnier because his body will just absorb their fat for fuel. It's absurd. And he honestly does not get injured that much. Yeah, he had the foot injury. And that slowed him down at the beginning of last year.
What would concern me about that is the fact that the offense just kind of falls apart when he's not there. And
well, but that's not completely true. We did go and have one of the best records in the NFL without him playing half our games.
But that was a lot of that was due to easy schedule. Not really. I mean, they were the number one seed in the AFC, but they played in a weak division, and I believe they got bounced in the divisional round on that when they had the number one seed.
We did. We got bounced.
So,
for whatever reason,
when the
Joe
contenders
Burrow
stood up, they
owns
couldn't
us.
match up. So,
Joe Burrow owns us almost as bad as Rodgers owned the Bears.
well, if you look,
Do not know even his rookie season when the Bengals were garbage and we were a playoff caliber team, he came in and just trounced us.
yeah,
We cannot stop that man.
so I take it you're not looking forward to week 4.
No, I mean it's a loss. I've already it's a loss.
They open up
Unless
against.
Burrow gets hurt again.
Well, I don't know. He may be back from that calf injury.
He'll be back. I'm saying if he gets hurt again.
Oh, yeah,
He'll be back.
He's susceptible to that.
But
Open up at New Orleans, then you have the Chargers at home, at Cleveland, Cincinnati, at Indy. I'm seeing 3-2 to open up.
Yeah,
I could see
Chargers and Bengals are the only two teams that I think we'll lose to in that.
Yeah, New Orleans might be a push.
No,
I think New Orleans might be a push.
they don't even have Alvin.
But you wait till you see who they've added. They added the Titans, however, added Chris Moore, a big pickup for them because they did lose Taylor Lewan. Andre Dillard, I feel like, was a good pickup for them at offensive tackle. He played well for Philly. And of course the big one in DeAndre Hopkins. I think you guys are going to like Chris Moore. He was productive with bad quarterbacking in Houston last year. They did lose Robert Woods, Austin Hooper.
I'm not worried. Neither one of those feel bad to me.
No, but it's Taylor Lewan, Ben Jones, guys I would be worried about.
As
Maybe
much as like
Bud Dupree.
personality-wise and leadership-wise, Taylor Lewan hurts.
Yeah.
The man does not play that many games.
No.
So I'm not going to feel his loss as much. I'm not happy about Nate Davis. Ben Jones, I understand just because I think that's more of a safety thing with him with injuries, like with how bad concussions were for him last year.
Yeah.
They're not going to get any better now.
No.
I think that hurts them. And then, Bud Dupree, cool. He had like 4 sacks. I'm not going to miss that. He didn't do much. Walker was good in rotation.
Yeah.
But we also get Landry back, so I'm not going to worry about that. And Dontrell Hillard, I mean, that's cool and all, but what's his name? Who we pick up? Spears.
Tyjae Spears, yeah.
Yeah, same thing.
So, and this is where I'm curious because you guys do get help on the offensive line with Skoronski. You pick up a running back in Spears, but all the attention was around Will Levis. And this is the second year in a row that Tennessee has picked up a quarterback with hopes that they rise to the occasion to okay, Curtis. I gotta look at when that's gonna happen. When will the Titans
Falcons
and Texans? Yes. But I want to know your thoughts on Will Levis because it's the second year they've picked up a quarterback in hopes that he will rise to the occasion to replace Tannehill.
I think we're gonna trade him next year.
Will Levis?
Yeah.
Yeah. I
mean, we might keep him because he's cheap, but
do you think he plays this year?
No.
I mean, it feels like because this is the last year of Tannehill's contract, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
It feels like Tennessee has wanted to move on from Tannehill for a while.
We're now at this point in the year, I think we're on the hook for all of his contract this year.
Yeah.
So why? Play it out.
Yeah, not now, but
we're not going to bench him.
I don't know unless he's terrible.
If Tannehill gets hurt, I think we'll see Willis. I think so? Willis got the jitters out. I think Willis got thrown into a bad situation last year with a downright deplorable offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
And had no hope of growing in that system.
So before I get to my prediction, I want to know what you're thinking. What are you thinking for the Titans this year?
This is going to sound terrible. It really is. And I actually hate that I have this many wins. I do, because I feel like I'm setting myself up for heartbreak.
Okay.
I think reasonably speaking, we go 10-7.
That's in the range of where I've got them. I've got them on the other side of that spectrum, though.
I actually think 11-6.
Do you think they get past the Jags?
Yeah, I think we're gonna split the Jags.
Yeah,
we're splitting the Jags.
I've got them 8-9, second in the AFC South, just because they have guys on that. They have guys on that team that are injury prone.
I mean, we have some that are injury prone, but we have a lot of people that are just coming off their first big injury. Now, one of the problems that I think is that it's lost onto a lot of people that don't watch Tennessee Titan football. Our old GM, John Robinson, loved picking players that had incredible upside, like could be game changers on the upside, but also had just sub-basement level downsides.
Yeah.
Because of injuries, behavior, all of these things. His hope was that they would drop to him, they would be a hit, and he looked like a genius. He more or less wanted to do a Bill Belichick with Tom Brady at every position.
That's that Patriot thing, though, too, because Bill O'Brien would do the same thing when not just when he was GM, but when he was head coach. And it's beyond frustrating.
I miss him as y'all's GM, too.
I don't. No, I miss him.
That was one of my favorite things ever. When you guys had put together some okay seasons and then went, let's make this guy the GM, too. Oh, it was great. Awful. I've never seen just a team go down in flames so fast.
That was miserable. I threw a chair at work. Because of that Chiefs loss.
Oh, that was great.
No,
that was that one in the play. Are you talking about the playoff one?
Yes.
It was the just stupidest comeback to ever be witnessed.
Yes, it was.
I get it. They came and they just spanked Tennessee the week after.
Yeah.
But when I look at the schedule, where we luck out is I'm not scared of the Colts. No. I'm not scared of the Texans. I think the Texans are going to be just so mad about that game happening at the, 2 weeks after, so December 17th, you're coming into Tennessee where we're wearing Love You Blues. We're going to beat you.
And really? I don't know.
In Nashville, you're going to lose.
The Texans always play the thing is the Titans get the Texans in Houston. But there's just something, even when the Texans, the COVID year, when the Texans were just in complete disarray, they got the Titans in Nashville. They always, but for some reason,
we
they
have
always
a
play the Titans
week.
close in Nashville.
We are not strong at home, but we will be in the Love You Blue. That's why you're not going to beat us.
Okay.
Because you're going to have J.J. Watt on the sideline crying into a towel the whole time that his Texans didn't get to wear the Love You Blue.
Well, JJ's going to the Ring of Honor this year. He's done. He's retired. Moving on.
No, I know, but I'm just saying he's going to be at the game crying into a towel.
All right, we'll see. I'll hold you to that one.
Did for like 9 years on Twitter is whine about that they couldn't wear the Houston Oilers uniforms. Get over it, JJ.
He wanted to really bad.
Yeah, I know.
I think the new uniforms though are going to have some tribute. I think they're going to. From what I've heard, the new uniforms that the Texans are bringing out next year has some kind of callback to it. I'm not sure what.
They can't.
It's not going to be. It's going to be like one of those things where it's like not exactly Love You Blue, but not exactly.
Oh, they're going to do Love You Blue, but it's going to be about their terrible Houston Texan Navy.
Okay, we'll see. We'll move on to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They were 9.
Real quick, just before that though, I just want you to remember though, it's December 17th.
It is.
And the thing I hate, and I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's because I pay attention the most to the AFC South. I hate how every year it feels like we'll play one of our division rivals like twice in 3 weeks. I hate it.
Yes.
We did it with the Colts last year. We're doing it with you guys this year. It's just like, it's division rival, some other random team, division rival, like, or same division rival. You know what I mean? It's that back to back every year.
Or it'll be division rival bye week, division rival.
I think that's what it was with the Colts. I think we actually did Colts bye week Colts.
And it's some, like, I get what the NFL is doing now with putting most of the division games at the end of the schedule. But it's just like, okay, death taxes the Texans finish against the Colts or the Titans, one of the two. And it's annoying. I feel like the schedule is just, I don't know. I mean, I get why the Texans don't have any primetime games, but it's just sometimes the way that they put the division back to back is just asinine.
We have the Miami Dolphins on Monday Night Football.
I see that.
That's a big thing for my family because the rest of my family are all Miami Dolphin fans.
Wow.
Because my family comes from Florida. So I grew up a Miami Dolphin fan.
That's why you like the U. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense now.
Everybody in Texas grew up. It was Texas Tech. It was Texas A&M. It was UT, because Baylor didn't matter and TCU didn't matter back then.
Yeah.
Growing up for me, it was Miami, Florida State. Like that was my big game every year. Yeah. Miami, Florida State, Miami, Notre Dame.
Big games.
Like that's what I grew up on.
Lots of legacy there.
Especially because when I was a kid is when the U was just downright dominant. So they were always on ESPN. Like, you know what I mean? They were always on cable because they were just unstoppable.
There you go. Speaking of Florida, we go down to Jacksonville. This is actually my son's team, my oldest son's team. 9-8, first in the AFC South. They lose in the divisional round 27-20 to KC after Trevor Lawrence. And it was honestly, this was closer than I feel like it should have been with Trevor Lawrence throwing 4 interceptions and then just having an outstanding second half. But a lot of people are thinking this is the year Trevor Lawrence really arrives for Jacksonville.
No.
You're not buying it?
No, because the Khan family, with the exception of the early inception of the Jacksonville Jaguars, they have a hard time building something and sustaining it with anything. I mean, you run into these problems with AEW, it's the same with the Jags. Yeah. Like they have a hard time building any sort of consistency, and I know that, and that's funny coming from a Titans fan because people think we don't have consistency. And I would argue we had the most 7-9, 8-8, 9-7 seasons to ever happen.
The Jeff Fisher record.
We are the definition of a mid-level team for decades.
Yeah.
We'd have a couple of bad years, and then we'd come right back to ultimate middle.
Even going back to the Oilers, yeah, they were well, maybe except for like those early '90s seasons.
Yeah, but that's the thing but we always balance out. We'll have 4 great seasons, then we'll go to 4 middle seasons, and then we'll go to 4 bad seasons, but then we'll come right back to the middle. That's just statistically what we do. The Cons, on the other hand, don't. They will get super great. They will look like world beaters. They will be a score away from going to the Super Bowl. And then they will be a 3-14 team the next year.
Drafting number 1 overall 2 years in a row.
That's what happens to them. It's the same thing. Who is it? Bortles?
Yeah.
They were a play away from the Super Bowl.
I know. That's crazy to think about.
They were a singular play. And the next year, they were nothing.
No. It all fell apart.
That's what the Jacksonville Jaguars do. Now, I could be proven wrong because the past never really actually affects now what the old teams did, but there is that common factor of what the Cons do, who they bring in, who's running their teams, all of those things that the Cons do have their hands in.
The only thing I feel like might really hurt them is their GM. Their GM is their GM was the GM in San Francisco. I can't put his name on right now, but their GM was the GM in San Francisco when San Francisco was just at the bottom of the league consistently. But bringing in Doug Peterson, working with, especially after the atrocity that Urban Meyer was, bringing in Doug Peterson.
He was my favorite head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Because you love the calamity, and he brought plenty of it. But it seems like the ship is settled for Jacksonville. Here's their first 5 games at Indy. Then they have the rematch against Kansas City. They've got a first place schedule this year. At Indy, home against Kansas City, home against Houston, Atlanta, and Buffalo for their first 5 at home. I think that's going to be big for them.
I still think they're only going to come out of it 3-2.
I think with that schedule, if they come out 3-2,
I think Kansas City's the one guaranteed loss.
Is it though without Eric Bieniemy?
Yeah. You still have Andy Reid.
Yeah.
You're still running. Bieniemy was great and all, but he was running Andy Reid's system. You still have the originator of the system.
Yeah, it's still there. Yeah, and that's big.
And you have Kelsey and Mahomes. And you might have Jonathan Taylor by then too.
They might. Oh, yeah, that might be big because Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a candidate to get cut from them. So it's just going to be Pacheco. They're going to need to bring someone else in.
There's some other running back they were in the running for.
Wasn't Kareem Hunt?
No.
He's not going back.
It was someone else they just need to trade for.
Looking at they had the 10th overall offense last season. And despite having the number 1 overall pick with a defensive end, they had the 24th overall defense. They added some key pieces. D'Ernest Johnson, I think, is going to be a great backup punch to Travis Etienne. He had some good games in Cleveland last year when it was either Chubb or Hunt that was hurt. But I will say this, they didn't add anyone like that just completely shifted the momentum. What I think shifts
You did miss somebody on your list though.
I didn't list all of them.
No.
I go off of Walter football. So
well, Calvin Ridley. I know technically he was on the team the year before, but he didn't play.
I was about to say that. Getting Calvin Ridley back is going to be huge for them.
Well, it's not even back really. He never played.
No.
He was just suspended all season. So it's not even back. That's why, to me, it should be counted as an ad this year.
Yeah.
You might have signed him last year, but he was suspended. It wasn't even injury. It was suspension. So that's why, to me, it's an ad this year.
I get that. That's fair. Looking at who they lost, I don't think. I mean, maybe Jawan Taylor was the biggest loss that they had. Marvin Jones, I wasn't.
Arden Key.
Yeah, Arden Key probably too.
Mainly
Shaq
because
Griffin.
he's doing really good for us.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you guys are excited to have it.
Yeah.
Shaq Griffin goes to us. I'm interested to see where he fits in the cornerback rotation with us. I think he may actually end up cut. Actually, Marvin Jones. Again, not really anyone jumping off the page. They do draft some O-line help. I think this was a good tight end draft. I feel like Brenton Strange might be a good complementary piece for Eric Ebron.
So many tanks.
I know, right? Tank Dell, Tank Bigsby. But I look at the Jags, and I just feel like when I look at the rest of the division, I just don't see anyone else in the division that looks like they, at least on paper, has the talent that can produce like they do. And especially on offense, when you can go in and hang. I know Lawrence had interception problems, but when you can go in and hang with Mahomes in the playoffs in Kansas City, that to me, Lawrence, because I know you don't feel like Lawrence is going to arrive, but I feel like Lawrence is going to really catch some people's eyes this season.
When I say I don't think Lawrence is going to arrive, I don't think it's going to be because of him.
Yeah.
I think the team's going to let him down.
Really?
I think
you might be right.
He will do everything he can. And I think where, like you said, he's able to throw 4 picks and still stay in a game.
Yes.
I mean, what he did against the Chargers last year in the playoffs, insanity.
Yeah. Nuts.
I think he's going to be forced to force it too much. I think his team is going to be letting him down, and either his defense is going to give up too many points, or his other offensive players aren't going to be making enough plays. They're going to miss some stuff, and he's going to force it too much. And
I think that's where getting Calvin Ridley back is really going to help him, because he's a bona fide number 1.
Yeah, but you're also coming off a year of not playing. I know training camp videos, he looks spectacular and all this other stuff. The man hasn't actually been hit by anybody in a very long time.
No. So,
Jeffrey Simmons is a big, big man.
Yes. So, and Will Anderson is going to be coming for him as well. So, before we get started with the NFC South, I want to thank my sponsor, Phone Medic Amarillo, Canyon, Lubbock. Thank you, Gabe, for sponsoring the show, sponsoring me as a wrestler. If you guys haven't already, follow me on Twitch at Justice8908 on YouTube and on Twitch and X, Twitter now, whatever it's called. Like I said, for this stream, for this episode, maybe the next couple, going to be streaming on my personal Facebook for now. But once the season starts, we're moving over to the Extra Point actual page. But yeah, that's where you guys can catch me. And Sterling, what do you guys got something cool coming up on Cinema Slayers, don't y'all?
Actually, as of literally 50 minutes ago, an episode about the movie Talk to Me
Really?
went up. And then next week, we've already recorded it because we actually our release schedule slightly shifted to give people time, so we're not doing spoilers the same week a movie comes out. We give people a little bit of time to watch it.
Yeah.
But we just recorded an episode on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
My son is excited to see that. Like
Mutant Mayhem. We just recorded that last night. It comes out next Wednesday. We have a lot of stuff like that. We will be doing at some point we will be doing a fan submitted movie or request for movies, because there's a few weeks coming up where there's no movies coming out.
Yeah.
So we're actually going to put out there, like, for people to give us suggestions. We'll put out polls, and we'll do movies that we may have missed, or maybe some older movies or something like that.
Can I find like an extremely bad movie for you and Justin to review?
Yeah, I think you've actually recommended some movies that I've seen.
Well, was it Disco Exorcist?
Oh, I haven't seen that one. No, there was one movie you put on there. You were like, oh, what about this? Like, oh, I can't wait to make you or Justin watch this and all this other stuff. I think I actually went and bought it and watched it.
I miss playing that game with you guys with bad.
I don't think people really understand, like, my affinity to just go and buy movies that I have never seen.
A lost art.
I'm notorious for it. I've got and I do a lot of it on iTunes because I like the fact that I can just sit here on my phone and go, oh, now I own this movie. I have, I think, 1,600 movies in my iTunes. Yeah, it's a stupid amount. That didn't include my TV shows. I buy a lot of TV shows too.
There you go. Well, we're going to move on to the NFC South.
Well, this is going to be brutal.
This is going to be brutal. Although I feel like there is a bright side to this division. This was arguably the worst division in the league by a long shot.
Did it change all of a sudden? Is it still not? Like,
well, I think it's still. I don't know.
I just think this year is still going to be the worst.
There's some light at the end. When I took a look at who people were adding, I'm not saying we're going to get like world beaters or anything like that. Or I'm not even predicting them to go to anyone from this division to go to the Super Bowl. But I am seeing places where there is progress and where there is some things that I can go, all right, they may have something here. We'll start last to first, like we always do. We'll go with the Atlanta Falcons. And here's the thing. The entire division outside of Tampa Bay was 7-10. The whole division was 7-10.
I think they're going to figure out a way for all four teams to be 7-10 this year.
They could. They very well could.
They're all going to score the same amount of points. They're all going to have the same number of points scored on them. I think they're just going to get down to a weird round robin coin toss tournament to decide who actually wins that division.
So crazy. But looking at the Atlanta Falcons, 27th overall defense, 24th overall offense, and you feel bad for guys like Kyle Pitts and Drake London who are talented, even Cordell Patterson, who was pretty much their entire offense last season. You had Marcus Mariota walk out on them before the season ended. It was just, I'm not going to lie. Like, I do our old tradition of watching all the games at Buffalo. And I think it was Saints Falcons. And I like getting to have all the games on all the TVs. And I was like, I can do without the Saints Falcons though. I only watched that game because I have like a streak going of seeing something live, whether it's a play or a series or something live from every game during the season.
See, I don't do that anymore. But what I do is I'll have the Tennessee game up on NFL Sunday Ticket. And then on my iPad, I will have Red Zone going at the same time. So I'll have my game. That's where the sound is. That's what I'm watching. But I have in my field of vision Red Zone. So I'm seeing everything else happening in all the games as it's happening, whilst not. But I see every play of my Tennessee Titans games. I have not missed one.
At Buffalo's, that's what I'm doing here at the house.
Yeah, I haven't missed a Tennessee Titan game in I think 12 straight years now.
Yeah, I'm going on like 8. No, probably about the same for the Texans.
Because my iPad has cellular, so even if I have to do something, I have that Tennessee Titans game on my cell phone or on my iPad.
Just go.
And I'll have an AirPod in, so I'm not missing anything. There's like, I'll go to my aunt's house. Like I said, they're all Miami Dolphins fans. They're watching the Miami games and all that other stuff. I'll have my iPad set up, Tennessee Titans, and it's going in my earbud.
Yep. Same with the Texans. I'll find a way to watch that Texans game.
I did a wedding once. Because I am a ordained minister, and I was officiating a wedding. And what I did during that scene, or during that part, it was the Tennessee Titans Kansas City playoff game when Tennessee came back in the end, when Mariota threw the touchdown to himself, when it was Alex Smith as the quarterback of the Chiefs
sitting on the bench.
And I had that game low key on lowest volume while I'm officiating a wedding. And I think at a certain point I did stop. I take that back. I did stop. But essentially, as soon as that was done, and it's like everybody's like, oh, wedding, reception, all this other stuff. It was full volume in my ear, phone on the table in a wedding.
There you go.
Watching that game.
Dedication, man. Looking at the Falcons, though, 27th overall defense, 24th overall offense. Like I said, I didn't really care about the NFC South, man. And it was hard to watch at times. There were some spurts, like I said, Kyle Pitts is fun to watch. Drake London, good to have on your.
Kyle
Those
Pitts
guys.
is boring.
He can't be, but he's surrounded by a boring team, honestly. And
I mean, the man can't score a touchdown. He is allergic to touchdowns. I think whatever paint they use in the end zone, the man has an allergic reaction to. So he avoids it like the plague because he doesn't carry his EpiPen with him like a responsible person with allergies.
Gotta stay safe, man. The first 5 games, they have Carolina at home, Green Bay follows at home. Then they go to Detroit, Jacksonville, and Houston. I see 0-3 start, maybe 0-4 for the Falcons if they don't get it together.
I could see it being 5 losses.
Seeing 5. I'm pushing against the Texans. Just
Carolina is a push because they're also so close to each other that is there really any home field advantage in this type of environment with that?
I feel like Carolina. I'll get to them one, and we'll go in more in depth. I feel like Carolina is better on paper, but looking at who they've added, honestly, I can see.
I think Atlanta has a better coach, though.
I do think so too. Although I think Frank Reich again had the Jim Irsay thing working against him as well. Taylor Heineke, who was a solid starter for Washington. Mac Hollins.
I love him.
Not Taylor Heineke.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, from the XFL to starting in a playoff game in the NFL, almost beating Tom Brady. But looking at who they had, guys like Mac Hollins, who says you're soft for wearing shoes. Bud Dupree, Calais Campbell, David Onyemata, Jeff Okudah, Trey Flowers. So there's some notable names getting added to that defense where they want to beef it up.
And most of them are washed, though.
I agree. They have that old Arizona mentality where they're a name, we recognize them, they did some things somewhere, and we're just going to add them, even though that they're washed or they're aging out of the league. They lose some of the big losses that they have: Marcus Mariota, Casey Hayward, Rashaan Evans.
I don't know what I know. I know Arthur Smith, was our offensive coordinator for a while, and we're the ones that gave him the shot to move up and all this other stuff. They picked too many people that we cut.
Yeah.
I mean, Marcus Mariota, Rashaan Evans, Bud Dupree. I feel like all the time, like they were going to sign Will Compton. It's just if we cut somebody, it's almost like you've got a guaranteed shot of legitimately making it on the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah. Titans deep south. It feels like what we were with the Patriots, where we were just picking up, okay, you were a Patriot. Yeah. And I hate when teams do that because it never works. And I will say this. I like who the Falcons drafted because I feel like Bijan Robinson is going to be an absolute beast in this league. What was that?
With that,
okay.
Do you agree with all these people that are saying he's a top 4 fantasy football pickup
this year?
Yes, because so many people have him there. He's top tier, especially if you're a traditionalist picking running backs. Essentially, is he a top 4 running back in fantasy? Top
10, I would say yes, but I don't know about top 4 because he's gonna get a lot of run. They're gonna run. They're gonna run him into the ground. I think next year he might be a top 4 because we're probably going to be looking at a Falcons team with a new head coach and probably a new quarterback. So
that'd be nice. Arthur Smith can come back home.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because you guys are going to get tired of Tim Kelly pretty quick, I imagine. Just remember this. This is his pattern. Run, pass. Every time. Doesn't matter where you're
at. make it sound like that isn't our pattern even when we had Arthur Smith.
Well, y'all go run. And then
no, we go run, pass, or we go pass because we end up getting a holding penalty on first down. So now we're backed up and we don't run the ball then at that point.
That's fair.
We either do run, pass, or pass. That's all.
This is just that he doesn't even change it up though. It's run, pass the whole time. But I feel like we're gonna see a new head coach next year in Atlanta. And unless there's just a dramatic turnaround and Desmond Ridder is the truth for some reason. But Bijan Robinson, I think, is going to get a lot of attention. And I think he's going to be a running back that this team can build around, whether it's with Arthur Smith, whether it's with a new head coach. But just quick prediction, because, again, there's not really much to write home about. I've got them 7-10, third in the NFC South, just because I think the Bucs are going to absolutely hit the floor this season. But I mean, I would imagine it's not too much different for you with the Falcons.
No, I wasn't joking when I said I think all 4 teams are going to be 7-10.
That'd be crazy. It might happen. Moving on, we'll go to New Orleans, and I will say this. I'll preface this by this. I think New Orleans is the team that might have the most upside in this division. If I'm looking at what they have had, they had a top 5 defense last season. The offense wasn't terrible. It's just they were hurt. And Chris Olave, I feel like, could have a breakout season. If Michael Thomas, that's a big if Michael Thomas can stay healthy, they got something. I know Kamara is suspended for 3 games, but that's 3 games he doesn't have to use his legs. And it's always hard to play in New Orleans. So I think if I had a favorite in this division, it would be the Saints.
I mean, maybe. I'm not scared of Derek Carr anymore. I'm not really scared of Kamara anymore.
Yeah, I think he's had his run.
I mean, there's no one on their offense that I'm like, oh, that's a worry.
Well, I'll show you who they've added, because I do feel like there's some notable names on there outside of Derek Carr. First 5 games, they open up against you guys with Tennessee coming to the Superdome. Then they go to Carolina and Green Bay. Then it's Tampa at home, and then at Gillette Stadium against the Patriots. I look at New Orleans and Tennessee, and I think that's a push to me. I can't tell you who's going to win that game, because you never know. You don't know what you're going to get between Tannehill and Hopkins, but you don't know what you're going to get between Derek Carr and Chris Olave either. Or I will say this. I feel like the Saints have the better defense. That could be the difference.
Maybe. I mean, and the reason why I wasn't even scared if Kamara was there or not is no one can run on us. Like, outside of, like a game here and there, no one can run on us. So it does not matter who the running back is. For the Saints, they'll get like 20 yards.
Well, they aren't. Here's the thing. They won't have Kamara until the Tampa game, but I don't think they're going to be marching out. They're not marching out Mark Ingram anymore. So, of course, they add Derek Carr. Jamal Williams, I feel like, is a solid pickup for them. The big one for me, though, I think Foster Moreau is going to be a big pickup, because him and Derek Carr did have a good rapport with them.
Yeah, but they have 27 tight ends now.
Yeah, and one of them's Jimmy Graham out of nowhere. I think it's just for him to retire as a Saint, but he's not the Jimmy Graham that was in the Super Bowl with Drew Brees, or getting close to the Super Bowl with Drew Brees. And honestly, I feel like they're getting all those tight ends so they can try to run the ball a bit better. But Jamal Williams, I think, could hold the fort down while Kamara's gone, and then provide a decent second punch. I'm interested to see what Jonathan Abram brings, excuse me, to the team. This was an already good defense, though. And I don't see this defense getting any worse.
I mean,
if they stay pat, they're top 5.
Potentially. But that's the thing with these, especially because they didn't really change too much.
No.
And to me, where you end up finding out if it's any good is just, is everything going to be the same? Yeah. Or is it are you going to see cracks in it? Is somebody going to get hurt? Like, these like legacy things, we don't really have much of that anymore.
No.
You know, we don't have things like the Legion of Boom. We don't have anything like, you know, that Ravens defense that just scared scared everybody so much. We don't really have those anymore. No teams are really doing that anymore.
Maybe the Niners, but they're going to be. I mean, next week I'm going to do the part 1 of the West, and it's not like the Saints lost anybody key. Maybe David Onyemata and Marcus Davenport, but Jarvis Landry was getting to be washed. Mark Ingram is washed. So is Roby and Chris Harris Jr. They come from another defense that had a name to it, like the no-fly zone. But I'm interested in their defensive line because I feel like that got better. Brian Breesy was one of the higher-rated defensive ends coming out. Foskey is another improvement. Kendra Miller could be a guy that shines a little bit because they need it. And then the other notable draft pick that they had was guard tackle Nick Saldivari. Like I said, it's just ho-hum for the Saints, but I feel like when you compare them to the other teams in the division, they have the most upside.
I mean, I won't necessarily disagree with that, but it's just I think they're a year away from it.
I think so too. And this will be a good feeling out process. Now, I will say this, and one thing that's given me a little bit more hope, you may not be sold on Derek Carr might not scare anybody anymore, but he's not Jameis Winston. He's not Andy Dalton. He's not Taysom Hill. He's better. He is better than those guys. He's not going to throw 30 interceptions. He may blow a lead, but I think compared to what they've had since Drew Brees left, Derek Carr is the best to come by that they've trotted out there. So
I don't necessarily disagree with that.
Here's my prediction for them. And I base this a lot on scheduling. They've got a 3rd place schedule, and they're playing the AFC South. So I'm looking at it. I've got them winning the division, 10-7, 4 seed in the NFC. Because there's other teams in the NFC that I don't think they're going to get past. But I've got them first in the NFC South, 4 seed in the NFC.
7-10.
Yeah, you're going to stick on that 7-10. Speaking of 7-10, we go to the other 7-10 team, Carolina Panthers. So they're the ones that out of this division has the most buzz about them, and it's because they made the bold move to trade up and get the number 1 overall pick, which led them to get Bryce Young. They gave up quite a bit to do so. Now, last year, again, Carolina, they were trotting out Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, P.J. Walker, whoever they could find at quarterback. They traded away Christian McCaffrey. And I will say this, out of the teams that are in the NFC South, I feel like Carolina is the one that is doing the most actively to get this team better.
Maybe. I mean, but they went and got like Adam Thielen.
He's still a solid number 2 receiver.
Maybe.
Now, looking at last year, 22nd overall defense, 29th overall offense, so down near the bottom of the league in both categories. Their first 5 games open up at Atlanta. They host New Orleans, at Seattle, Minnesota, and then at Detroit. So 3 of their first 5 on the road, and they're not playing lightweights in the NFC to start it off. I mean,
best case they're 2-3.
Yeah, best case. I could see a 1-4 start for them.
It's 0-5 or 2-3. I mean, I don't.
They might get Atlanta.
Yeah, they might get Atlanta. They might get New Orleans. You know, just because it's at home.
And what's going to be crazy is if they do that and start 2-0, everybody's going to be all over Bryce Young and Frank Reich and how it's now for the Carolina Panthers, and I don't think they're there quite yet.
No, they're not. I mean, and the thing is with them is it's just there is so much. I think that they had so many weak spots that to me, I don't care how many people you draft, how many people you bring in. are you really able to fill all the weak spots? And
season.
And that's why, I mean, this one, they might have a ton of buzz, but it also might be like this is the team where people are going to die.
Maybe. And they do bring in some guys like, I think Miles Sanders still has some production left in him. DJ Chark's solid. He's good for a couple of good games. Adam Thielen kind of got lost in the scheme in Minnesota. Hayden Hurst, he's kind of a streaky tight end as well. Andy Dalton's a solid backup, but Deshaun Williams and Von Bell, I think, probably will add to that defense. What they've lost, the big one that they've lost is DJ Moore and Dante Foreman. Foreman had a resurgence with the Panthers last year.
He had a resurgence with Tennessee.
Yes.
His resurgence wasn't last year. His resurgence was the year before when he helped replace Derrick Henry.
Yes.
I miss that man. I
do too. So we drafted him, and Bill O'Brien screwed that up.
But I don't see them. I mean, you lose what, like half your linebackers and half your offense. Like, what are they going to do?
And there's and everyone, you go to who they drafted. Obviously, Bryce Young, Jonathan Mingo at wide receiver, DJ Johnson at end, Chandler Zavala with their first 4 picks. So I'll say this, because by now everyone's seen the videos of Bryce Young at camp and just the size differential between him and the rest of the team. I wasn't a big Bryce Young is too small guy until I saw him standing next to standing behind his line. So I got to ask, because I'm starting to believe this more and more. Do you feel like the size of Bryce Young is going to be a liability for Carolina?
I do, just because, I mean, it really depends on the quarterback though, because you always have those people that will come in that are too short or too tall that are able to make it work. And to me, as much as everybody like hates short quarterbacks, to me, I feel like it's the opposite. Those tend to be more successful than quarterbacks that are too tall.
Yeah. Prototype guys.
Well, what was his name? Brock Osweiler. Wasn't he like 6'7"?
Yeah.
And yeah. You could see for miles, but
couldn't throw.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's not
because their launch angle is so much different.
Yes, and it's so much longer.
Yeah.
It's not the height that I'm worried about with Bryce Young. He's my size. I'm actually taller than Bryce Young, but we're the same weight. It's the frame. You're gonna have some pretty big dudes breathing down your neck, even in just this division. And his offensive line, not the best. I know Bryce can move. What's that?
How fast is he?
I gotta see. I don't think he ran the 40. I don't think they may not have released, because I know he didn't run at the combine. He wanted to save everything for his pro day, I believe. But I mean, he was hurt last year for a little bit. And
shows it as a 4.52.
Yeah. So not necessarily, I guess, in terms of when you're comparing him to some of the other guys, like maybe a Justin Fields or Lamar Jackson, yeah, he's slow. But is he going to have time to get out of the pocket and run and get away so he's not absolutely crushed?
Did Bryce Young ever play baseball?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, he's screwed.
Yeah.
I mean, Russell Wilson lucked out because he played baseball.
Yeah, and he could
slide. Knew how to slide. Yeah.
And
if you're his size, and Russell's bigger than him.
Yes.
He's gonna probably end up being like RG3. He might light you up, he might be exciting, but he's gonna get hit, and then he'll never be the same.
No. Or he's gonna get hurt. Like hurt.
That's what I mean. Is he's gonna get that one hit that wouldn't hurt, wouldn't hurt somebody, maybe the size of like Big Ben, or just wouldn't hurt, somebody that actually is bigger.
Yeah.
can take a hit, he's going to get that one hit.
And, speaking of baseball, that's probably the only thing that saved Kyler Murray up until last year.
Kyler Murray's going to be dead this year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's going to be a massacre for them.
The Arizona Cardinals are trying to kill him.
Yeah.
They picked up Dennis Daly, who is statistically one of the worst offensive tackles to ever exist. And they picked him up.
And they didn't re-sign his number one receiver. Going back to you on this one, 7-10, second in the NFC South. I don't know why I left it there. I got to get better on these graphics. Second in the NFC South. But we move on to Tampa Bay, who losing record. First in the NFC South, they lost the wild card 31-14 to Dallas, made all the Cowboys fans feel invincible. And I'm looking at, their first 5 games. At Minnesota, Chicago, Philly, New Orleans. They get the bye, and then they go to Detroit. That's a first place schedule, and it's not looking good for them.
That early bye is always the worst, too.
Yeah.
They'll be 2-3.
It depends. I think Chicago is going to be better than advertised.
Chicago will be better, but
not better than Detroit. But
they won't be that much better that I don't think it's a push in a home game win.
Yeah.
And I think they could beat. New Orleans is tough.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
This is one of those things, just kind of like we just said with Carolina. It's 2-3 best case scenario, 0-5 without it. Like
more than likely.
Yeah, it's either one.
Looking at their offense now, keep in mind this is with Tom Brady still. 15th overall offense, 9th overall defense, and I looked it up earlier. I looked it up before the show started. That's still with Tom Brady being 3rd in the league in passing at 45 years old. That's what they have lost. What they added Baker Mayfield, and it's between him and Kyle Trask. We heard Baker starting the first game. Trask is starting the second. Chase Edmonds comes on as the running back, and that really, as far as like the notable additions, I believe the offensive line is going to be healthier for the most part this year, because that was one thing that I really felt like hurt Tampa Bay. They had no line because everybody got hurt early in the season. I believe Brady didn't play with his full offensive line until like 2 or 3 weeks before the season ended.
Yeah. And at that point, they're rusty. They're not fully in it, coming off injuries. And also Brady was a little shook at the end of the season too.
Yeah. And
he got waylaid all year.
Yeah. And and he was feeling that.
Yeah, well, he got waylaid and he was old.
Yeah. They lose, of course, Brady leaves. So does Leonard Fournette. Julio Jones, who's kind of a ghost of himself, didn't re-sign with the team. Shaq Mason was a big one. He gets traded to the Texans. Carl Nassib, he's been kind of in and out. Akeem Hicks is another notable name. And then they lose some guys in the secondary. To me, this is, again, numbers. They lost more than what they added, both in the draft and in free agency.
I think their defense is going to be way worse. I think their offense is going to roughly be the same, though.
You can't replace. I don't want to say you can't, but it's very hard to replace 3rd in the league in passing.
Yes, but all right. So you have Tom Brady putting up those numbers with cardboard cutouts on his offensive line.
Yeah,
I think you just give Baker that offensive line, but healthy. I'm not saying he'll be 3rd in the league. I think they'll score points.
The thing with Baker is, man, he is prone to just throwing turnovers at the worst time.
He never had that offensive line, though, that was anywhere near the caliber of what Tampa's is.
No, you're right. But I still think it's more than just that. It's his ability to see what's coming in the defense. And I feel like Baker sometimes has a tendency to be fooled pre-snap and see something that's not there, or not see something that needs to be seen. And
well, that's just because he's physically not tall enough to see it.
Possibly, but he's also not going to have the run game that he had in Cleveland. So I don't know. To me, this is the last chance for Baker Mayfield, I think, to really establish himself as somebody that can be a quarterback that gets you to the playoffs and wins games. It's got to be. If he washes out in Tampa, I don't know who else is going to pick him up and put him in a starter role.
Anyone. I mean, starter, maybe not. Teams will pick him up, though. As long as he's willing to take that pay cut, he can be Case Keenum all day.
Yeah, and he's not going to want – but he's got that ego on him. He's not going to want to be the backup.
Yeah, because in his mind, he'll sign that team for that backup deal thinking, I'm going to get to training camp and win it.
Yeah.
He'll sign.
I'm interested to see because, again, I don't have a whole lot of faith in the Bucs. Here's who they drafted. So, Kalijah Kancey on the defensive line, Cody Mack at guard, Yaya Diaby, and they went defense for the most part on their draft. I feel like, the defense is going to keep them in games, but it's the offense that I feel like is just going to be – it's going to be a detriment because Mike Evans, I don't feel like he's the receiver that he was. Chris Godwin, he's slowing down too.
I weirdly feel like they could both have 1,000-yard seasons, though.
Yeah, but it's going to get them nowhere. It's going to be one of those things where they put up great numbers, but what did it earn them ultimately?
It's probably going to earn them a playoff spot to just get bounced in the wild card.
See, I'm the complete opposite. I've got them 4-12, last in the NFC South, top 3 pick.
I'll go crazy. I'll break it. 8-9 making the playoffs.
Again, yeah. The South is weird because it could swing like that. But I think just with looking at what they've done, I'm not sold on the Bucs because they're in the same space that the Patriots are now, just maybe with not as great of a coach because Todd Bowles he's still the same Todd Bowles he was in New York. And they're trying to figure out life after Tom Brady, and it hasn't been good for those teams that are trying to figure that out.
Well, yeah, I mean it's never easy to replace like the greatest player of all time.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, even at a late age, like the Bucs weren't getting the best Tom Brady.
Oh yeah, I mean, but a couple of years ago they did. They got a really great Tom Brady a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But I mean, I get you. But even then, I mean, a lesser Tom Brady is still better than so many players.
I agree. it's a shock to the system thing for me with this because they kind of had that with losing Todd Bowles or losing with Bruce Arians stepping aside. And I think the big part is I don't trust Todd Bowles as a head coach. He's a better defensive coordinator than he is a head coach. And that's going to cost him.
Did he run the defense last year?
I'd have to check and see. I know he ran it when they went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. But that was with Bruce, though.
But
I'm just saying, did they actually have a defensive coordinator last year? Because that's where things get messy. Because a few years ago, Vrabel was like, fuck this. Sorry, everybody.
You're fine. You're fine.
I'm used to my podcast. I say lots of bad words on my podcast.
We're late enough.
But a few years ago, like Vrabel took over the defense after Dean Pease left. And, because Vrabel had been defensive coordinator, all this other stuff, it split his time too much.
Yeah.
Especially, I think it's a lot harder when it's defense and head coach.
Yeah.
Now, I think with all the things that offensives do now and all the things you have to adapt to and all those things on the fly as on a defense, it's a lot harder to split your time to do the big picture and the small picture micro stuff you got to do. If they had a defensive coordinator,
last year it was Casey Rogers. But I don't know if Todd Bowles was calling the plays.
It could be like, and Vrabel had to step away because we made the playoffs, but still, it was like one of those things. It was a little too much.
I said this when we were covering in my first episode when we were covering the NFC East and we were getting to the Dallas Cowboys. I know it's the other side of the ball, but I think it's a principle that could be applied to both sides of the ball. Anytime that I see a head coach taking over play calling duties, it's always a red flag for me because to me it's like a sign of I don't want to say desperation, but it's a sign of I know I'm fighting for my job. Like I know Mike McCarthy is taking over the play calling duties for a 12-5 team, but I really feel like he knows his job is on the line. And so he's saying, you know what, if I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out because I'm going to go out doing it myself.
I mean, that's great and all, except you're saying it to Dak. So
yeah. And I think Bowles in this is he called it because nobody else was there. But it's like you said, it's just so much that it takes away from the other responsibilities. But it's not like Todd Bowles was a great head coach to begin with.
I mean, you know, I know this is slightly like a homer statement. I would trust Vrabel a little bit more to do some of this stuff than other coaches because outside of what he knows about defenses and all this other stuff, this guy is a mad genius when it just comes to knowing football.
Yeah.
You know, when he was doing that stuff to Belichick of doing the penalties right before the 2-minute warning to constantly keep the clock running.
Yeah.
And all this other stuff to just eat away so much time before they have to get rid of the ball up to the point of where if they do it one more time, it's a penalty, clock stops, all this other stuff. Take it right up to the line. So he did it so much. He did it 2 times that season. Everybody made a big deal when he did it to Bill Belichick. Everybody ignored it whenever he did it to the Jets earlier in the season. You know, when you know football so much that you know these stupid little rules so much that you can abuse it to where they change the rule afterwards, you get some benefit of the doubt of whether or not you can, you know, still make big picture decisions. But like you were saying with Bowles, has he shown that though?
No.
Has he shown that he can just have such a weird micro strategy of the game of football to where he could be worrying about the defense, but something random little thing that could pop up that he could take advantage of, but he didn't because he wasn't paying attention?
No. Yeah. And right now, I feel like there's only 2 coaches in this league right now that probably could take over defensive play calling and still be good. And it's Vrabel's one of them, like you said. D'Amico Ryans is probably the other because
Bill Belichick could.
Belichick could, but I think he is this year because Patricia went to the Eagles.
Patricia was offensive coordinator last year, though.
Yeah, so was who was it? Joe Judge. That was a mess. But I think Belichick could, but he's more of I want to have control over everything.
Well, see, his problem is he wants to be GM, head coach, and defensive coordinator. He wants also that GM spot too.
Yeah,
you know,
and
that's where he gets too thin.
I know where that. I know again that's he does that with a lot of his coaches too. But either way, that'll do it for tonight. Thank you, Sterling, for coming on, man. That's awesome. I hope to have you on more during the season. Bring your Sounders too. I'm excited for that. But we made it through the NFC, AFC South. Are you ready for our draft on September 3rd?
No. I don't pay attention till the day of.
Gotcha. Well, I'll put it this way.
I'll be drafting in a dynasty league, I think, the weekend before.
Oh, nice.
That one ends up taking up way more of my time because I actually had to make cuts today. I had to cut players today.
Not good.
Because, you know, it's a rolling dynasty league. So, you know, You're trading players for future draft picks, all this other stuff. I mean, I showed up in that league a few years ago. The very first thing I did as the new GM of my team is I traded Aaron Rodgers.
That's fair.
With one of those draft picks, I picked up Mahomes his rookie year.
That's
So
sad.
this guy was sitting on my bench for a whole year. Next year goes off. I have him for 1 year. Trade him. And I got Aaron Jones, Josh Allen, and a few other players.
I just know because I'm looking to have Justin on next week or the week after. We got to stop him from winning a 4th year in a row.
I tried. I did my part last year, with the exception of beating him in the championship game.
Man. Well, I'm excited.
Who did he beat in the championship game the year before?
Year before last?
Yeah. That would have been in the original League of Extraordinary Rawness.
Let's see. Ooh, that would be 2021. Let me look because I don't have access. For some reason, I didn't have access to the other one. I had to create a whole new league. Let's pull it up.
I think I did actually kill that league finally too.
Oh yeah. Let's see.
But whoever it was,
2021, he beat our friend Joel.
Okay.
By 40 points.
Which I think he wanted them to beat me to then get to that game. So
Yeah.
I've been trying.
I'm up there too.
I'm tired of taking a very mediocre team on a playoff run to lose to Justin, okay? Because I have nothing but mediocre teams. I mean, even in my dynasty leagues, it's funny. Everybody will pick on me because I have just a downright mediocre year until always about the midway. And then my team will always get better. And then I make a deep playoff run. Every time I've made a playoff run in that dynasty league, I make it to typically what would be like the conference championships every time. And I always end up losing to the two teams that are always vying for our Super Bowls in that league. Because it's very hard in that one because I'm going up against guys that have had their teams for 6 years. I took someone else's team over. So these people have like 8 quarterbacks.
God.
They'll have starting quarterbacks on their that they've never played just because it's a matchup thing. You know what I mean? Like they've hoarded so many players that it's so hard that by the time you can get them to trade them, you're trading somebody past their prime or getting somebody past their prime, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I always end up doing that though. I'll make a super deep playoff run. Like record wise, I was the worst team going into the playoffs. I'm drafting third to last in that league.
Dang.
Because I made it to the conference championship and then I won the third place game. Because,
So
we weren't actually paying attention.
Arlington Renegades of your league.
Yeah.
Without the championship.
It's ridiculous.
Well, one more time, let everyone know when and where we can catch Cinema Slayers.
Cinema Slayers podcast is found wherever you listen to podcasts. We are also on YouTube. You can check us out on YouTube. It's Cinema Slayers podcast on that. YouTube episodes come out every Thursday morning. The audio for it in podcast form comes out every Wednesday night. Like I said, it actually auto-released about an hour and a half ago, our newest episode. And as weird as it may sound, we're weirdly enough coming up very close to our 300th episode.
There you go.
We're 40 away. We're a few months away, but it's weird because we've been doing it for 5 years now.
Wow.
It'll be 6 years this spring.
I remember when y'all were talking about this.
Yeah.
So it's crazy, man. But thank you for joining me, man. We'll hope to have you on more during the season as we go.
I can't wait to come back on for you to apologize this Titan slander.
I'm ready for you to apologize for this Houston Texans defamation.
Where are you going? What'd you predict them having?
I got the Texans at 6-11, and I had the Titans with a better record.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, whenever there's when there's like one game left in the season and they're 5-10 or they're 6-10 or whatever.
Their last game is the Colts.
Okay, so they'll be 5-11 in their last game. I mean, and Tennessee had already secured the playoffs 2 weeks before that.
No, not at 7-10. But
Oh,
all
no,
right, well, yeah,
we're double-digit wins this year.
we'll check in during the season, see how that goes, Sterling. But all
When
right,
Derrick Henry breaks 2,000 yards by week 17, he'll have another game to keep going.
all right, I'm ready to let this team do the talk, man. But we'll let you go. Gotta catch.
Thank you very much.
We'll catch up later, man. But again, thanks for coming on, Sterling. We'll close everything out. But
have a good one. Thank you everybody for listening to me ramble.
We'll see you later, Sterling. Well, guys, that does it for week 3 of the big ass NFL preview. I'm looking to probably split the AFC NFC West into 2 parts, barring when I can get the guest on. We're looking to end in the bye week with the preview. So we got 2 weeks until that happens. As far as wrestling, you guys can catch me this Friday in Wetumpka, Oklahoma for Majestic Pro Wrestling. I will be in Midland this next weekend, or the end of the weekend on August 27th at the Midland County Fair. So, and then we're going to go back to Borger, Texas for Motivate Pro Wrestling. And then I've got SCP next month as well, too. But guys, remember, follow me on Twitch at Justice8908. Follow me on Twitter, same hashtag or same @ symbol. Instagram, same thing, Justice8908. My wrestling page, Facebook.com/official Ryan Justice. And then go follow the Extra Point Facebook page as well. Guys, I'm excited. We got preseason football tomorrow. We're going to have a full slate of games over the weekend. We're going to have a lot to talk about next week as well. Until then, we'll see you later.